Hey crafty people, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. Over the years I've dabbled in most types of crafting, although for the past decade or so I've been doing primarily card making and mixed media art. I've recently embarked on a junk journaling journey that I hope you'll join me on. For the 9th card of Christmas, I'm going to try something completely new. I'm going to try creating a reveal wheel card with 2 reveal wheels layered on top of each other. Spoiler alert, the results were a little bit mixed, but I still thought it was worthwhile to share what I did with you. Let's get crafting! So we are going to create a reveal wheel card, and I'm using the new Simon Says stamp set. It's Little Snow Globe Dog. And so you can see it comes with a snow globe and a cabinet to put it on, or a chest of drawers to put it on, a dog, some accessories, and stuff to stamp in your snow globe. I also have the Fawn reveal wheel die and the die set that coordinates with this for creating the snow globe cutouts. So I've already gone ahead and stamped, colored, and die cut all of my bits and pieces. And I am going to try something a little different from a regular reveal wheel. I'm going to try and do a double layer reveal wheel. We're going to see how this works. If you're not familiar with the reveal wheel die set, it cuts out this rectangle and it's got a little notched part at the top where you can slip in different shaped windows for your reveal. So what will happen is we will put this behind like that, and you've got the little wheel that can turn and change your scene. So you need to die cut the wheel out. There's a little circle, and the mechanism for creating the reveal wheel is you put a brad through the circle, you put the scallop circle on top, you've tightened it down, and then you glue this part to your card base, and it leaves this popped up a little bit, and all you do is glue this bit down and you're able to spin your wheel. Well, I want to create a second wheel on top that has different snow. So I cut a piece out of craft plastic, acetate, whatever you've got. You could try using packaging material, but it might be a little too flimsy for this project. And I was doing some test runs, and what I did was I put a foam square in the center here. That's not part of your normal reveal wheel assembly. And I realized I think I want it popped up a little bit more, so I'm going to add another square on top. And I actually dusted this with powder so it's not sticky anymore. So to help with adhering, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. And add my little square on so that we have a double layer of foam squares. It's very slippy slidey. Hopefully this is gonna work. So I'm just gonna leave that sit for a minute while the glue dries, and while that's doing its thing, we can work on a few other bits because I haven't stamped my snow yet, so we've got to do that. This is going to be my very base of my card because the reveal wheel is a little bit smaller, so that's what we're going to do, and that's not going to show, so let's set that aside. This is where we're going to build our scene. I'm going to set my little snowman, or my little snow globe stamped bit aside, and I cut it out again out of dark brown cardstock to create a floor. And the reason I did that is so that I could keep the stitching detail along the side when I trim this down. So let's start building our scene a little bit so we can figure out how big of a piece we need to cut for creating our floor. So I'm going to take the snow globe, and the die set comes with dies to cut out the snow globe and still keep the inside piece, and then a separate die to cut out the inside if you're doing a reveal wheel. So let's put this on so that we can get our, and I'm not going to glue all the way at the bottom so I can tuck my cabinet underneath, but my floor needs to go on before my cabinet, but I need to figure out how high I need to make my floor so that my cabinet's not floating in space. So we're just going to glue this on and see it's set up perfectly so that if you're doing the reveal wheel, it lines up perfectly over the hole. So yeah, when we assemble, you'll have cute little scenes inside. And so we're gonna just squish that down too much, and of course the glue spread, and now, even though I didn't put glue all the way to the bottom, let's, aha, there we go. So our cabinet's gonna go there, which means our ground needs to be underneath our cabinet. And let's try and get our cabinet so it's somewhat level. So I'm gonna just put my brown piece here and decide where my ground needs to be. It needs to go about here. So I'm going to make a mark with a pencil and grab my paper trimmer and trim down my floor. So I'm just going to line that line, the pencil mark I made up with my paper trimmer, and trim that off. Now to add more interest, I am going to take out my scoreboard and score in some lines to create like a plank look to my flooring. And I'm just going to do 1/2 inch all the way down the piece. Oh, that one's a little, so we got one skinny bit at the end. And so there's my floor. And so that'll go on there like this, and then this piece will sit on like that, so it's sitting on the floor. I want to add a little bit of interest to this piece, and so what I'm going to do, since it's so dark and nothing dark is going to work well, I'm going to grab my Picket Fence Distress ink and a foam brush, and I'm just going to add a little bit of light to it. And then to highlight my dark lines, what I'm going to do is grab ground espresso, an acrylic block, paintbrush, a little water just to get my paintbrush wet. And then I'm going to take the ground espresso and just go in and highlight my grooves by making them darker. I'm also going to grab a foam dauber and ink the edges of this. So just adding a little bit more interest and depth to the piece than just using straight dark brown cardstock. So there's our ground, and I'm just gonna add that on. Ooh, let's clear some space. I've hit that point of my holiday crafting where the amount of space I have to craft in is getting smaller and smaller because things are just getting left out, and it's utter chaos. All right, so I'm gonna glue this on. And we're going to add our table. And then we'll add our little puppy dog who's sitting checking out the snow globe. Put this in on his head. I think I may end up adding maybe another dog down here just to add a little bit more interest, because there's too much blank space down there. So that's going to end up going on here once we finish with our reveal wheel mechanism. Now we need to stamp our acetate. Now what I want to do is have like different amounts of snow on the piece so that when you spin, you can spin them theoretically separately. So you could have the penguin and change how much snow's over the penguin by rotating the top piece. So I'm gonna grab my Misty. I'm just gonna stick the magnet in the middle, and I'm gonna grab my Stays On ink, which I hope still has ink in it, in Azure, because I'm stamping on acetate, so you need a solvent-based ink if you want it to ever dry. So we're gonna start with our wedge here that's got a ton of snowflakes. And we're gonna, fingers crossed, ink it with our Stays On in blue. Oh, it looks like it's still good. Oh. And that worked. I know you can't see it against the dark background here. Let me pull that out. So that worked. We've got snow. Excellent. So now for next to that spot, you know what? I'm going to put a piece of white paper down so that I can see what I'm doing. And then we're going to stamp this guy. And so when we have it on top of our piece, we can have either a lot of snow or a little less snow. And I'm going to keep going and do some more snow so that there's different amounts of snow all around. All right, so as you can see, we have a varying amount of snow on our snowy piece. Bring this piece back. I think this has stopped wobbling, so I'm going to flip it over because we need to poke a hole in it again. So I'm just gonna take my little awl and poke a hole all the way through. Oh, it's sliding off. Hopefully we're not gonna have issues with this. All right, that did not stay stuck. I'm gonna try this again. I'm taking up both pieces and tossing those foam squares out because they're not staying stuck to each other because of the powder I added. So I'm gonna start by putting one foam square down, peeling off the backing. I am gonna add glue again just to help it adhere. And then putting another foam square on, right on top, so that we have a double layer of foam square. And that's gonna need a minute to dry. So I'm gonna set that aside and I will be back once that's dry and we can do final assembly. Okay, so I let this dry and it's on good, I think. And I pulled that off and I didn't mean to. Actually, it's okay. So because I don't want this to be sticky, I don't want anything to stick to it, I'm going to take some baby powder and a soft brush and just dust it, and that will take away the sticky. So that is a quick and easy way to deal with something that's sticky that you don't want to be sticky anymore, is soft brush baby powder. Now I am going to poke my hole back in so that we can get our brad through. Just gonna stick my awl through, pull that out, and set that aside. Now we're gonna put our brad through our bottom circle, our top circle, and our foam squares. And I'm not gonna pull my brad through very tightly, and then I'm going to put it through our acetate piece, through the circle in the center of that. So we now have a bit of a gap between the two so that they should spin independently of each other once they're attached down. So we're gonna open up our brad. We're theoretically gonna open up our brad. Okay. And again, I'm not going very tight because we want movement here. So we're just opening it so that it stays in place. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna line up one of our snowy scenes. We are gonna flip this over and we are going to attach some adhesives to this. I think what I'm gonna do is grab a couple squares. Uh-oh, and we shifted, so we're gonna have to adjust because we want to use that being lined up correctly to assist us in attaching it to our card base. And I'm going to add glue onto the brad. This is a thicker brad than I usually use when I make one of these, so that's why I'm adding the extra adhesive to help here, hopefully. Now, I'm going to put this down. Yep, we're going to flip so we can see what we're doing. So, I've got my wheel lined up correctly because I've got my little person in the center. It's going to be my card base. I am going to stick that down. And now I'm just going to take these parts off the top to make sure I get the bottom section stuck down, which, oof, not cooperating. There we go. All right. So again, the whole point of this is just to serve to hold the mechanism, like the brad for the mechanism, in place, and then we can put our pieces back on. Apparently there's still some sticky on here. Let's get some more powder out. Just having one of those days where nothing wants to cooperate. We definitely do not want our top piece sticking to this piece because then it won't move. So we've got that attached. Let's stick it through again. I think my hole needs to be a little bit bigger. I think that's what the problem is here, is that the hole through is not as big as the hole in here, and so we're not moving as smoothly as I would like. So let's try making that hole bigger. And I'm gonna make this one a little bit bigger too because the brad legs are a little bit bigger. I usually use these teeny tiny brads when I do this. So we're just gonna adjust things, hopefully, so this will work, or you won't ever see any of this if I can't get it to work. So there, let's open up the brad feet. Again, not squishing it down too terribly tight. And let's see, will they move? Will this move? Okay, that moves all right. So here's the problem. I think there needs to be a little bit more of a gap. Okay, I think I solved my problem. So I grabbed a piece of paper, cut it about to the same size as that, and folded it over a couple times and put a hole in the center. And we're gonna stick that down here. Then we're gonna stick this on, and now we're gonna open up the brad. Again, not pushing too tight, but now I can get the one turning without turning the other. And I think what I may do, I think part of the problem is the fact that they are the exact same size. So it's a little hard to grab like the bottom one and not the top. I think what I am going to do is, see how big this is. This is, what is it? It is 3-inch scallop. I'm gonna go see if I've got a die where I can just take off the scallopy bit so that it's just slightly smaller, because if I freehand it, it's gonna be a mess. I'll be right back. Okay, so I did have a circle die, so as you can possibly see, I've now cut it out. Now, unfortunately, I ran it through my die cutting machine and it didn't cut all the way through, so I ended up having to trim it out anyway, but at least I had the indent lines from attempting to die cut it out. So, now when we put this on, we should have just a little bit that sticks out of that one. So, all right, let's open this up. We'll be able to I think I need to loosen this a little more. Come on, why are we? Okay, I'm just trying to separate this piece from the bottom piece. All right. So this will turn. I think my grand vision is not going to come fully to fruition. Because the bottom one's not, the bottom one will turn both of them if you turn the bottom one. The top one will turn on its own. It was turning. Why is it not turning so nicely anymore? I think, let's see, are we catching? So you can, strangely enough, this one wants to turn one way more than the other. So you can get the top one to turn on its own, but the bottom one will turn with it. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put the top piece on. Now, for the top piece, we are gonna end up foam squaring all around to pop it up above the mechanism so it'll work. And I'm probably gonna have to do multiple layers on my foam squares in order to get it to do that. So let's pull out some foam squares And I'm going to use some of the bigger ones. And I'm pretty much going to put them in the corners because I know that's not going to overlap. And I'm thinking, because this is going to require a ridiculous number of foam squares to get it up high enough because of how much height we had to add here, that what I may do is foam square and then use some scrap paper to build it up so that it's high enough, because yeah, this needs to sit up above here, so it needs to go up a goodly amount. So what I'm gonna do is find some scrap paper. Our foam squares are ½ inch wide. So I'm going to trim this down to a ½ inch wide. I'm going to cut 4 ½ inch wide strips. And basically, I'm just going to fold this piece back and forth to create some height for adding the last piece on. Okay, so I've gone ahead and folded these guys all over accordion style. I think I'm gonna grab my ink and ink, well, actually I think what I'm gonna do is actually add some glue so that they're a little less springy. And so the strips were 5½ inches long and then a ½ inch wide. So I'm just gonna hold those down for a sec so that they're not full on springing up, except I think I need to just glue everything. All right, we're gonna glue these suckers down. And so we pretty much just accordion folded. So I went back and forth folding it until I ran out of paper. And so they're all about the same height. And I am going to add foam squares on top of them. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my ink, grab some walnut stain because I want to go fairly dark, just so that they're a little less noticeable. I'm going to just ink the edges of the add-on piece so that they're not going to stand out quite so stark white. And I'm not even on screen a little bit, am I? Sorry about that. So I just went ahead and inked them a little bit so that I wouldn't have to worry about them standing out stark white so much against the piece. Probably should have just grabbed like a brown cardstock or something, but I just grabbed some scrap cardstock that was on my table. So I'm gonna add foam squares again to the bottom of these just to give a little bit more height, and fingers crossed this thing is gonna work. And a little bit more glue in there. It should be fine once everything's stuck down. I don't anticipate it like springing up. Oops, I'll just add a little more glue in there. And we're gonna line up our reveal wheel and put this down. It is very popped up, but our reveal wheel is going. Now, when you do the bottom one, it definitely moves both, but you can turn just the top wheel. Top wheel is just not spinning as nicely as I would like it to. Don't know why. And pretty much now I'm just kind of spinning it to try and like loosen it up and get it to spin smoother. But yeah, you can spin them in, you can spin the top wheel independent of the bottom wheel. It's not working as well as I had hoped. It definitely works better if you hold the bottom wheel in place while spinning the top wheel, but I don't know if you can see, we're turning just the top wheel and changing the snow. So there's our double reveal wheel card, and I will put it on a card base, which hopefully might help a little. Is this okay? I do have a card base handy. Let's go ahead and glue this sucker down, which will hopefully add a little bit more stability to it and make it a little easier to get the pieces to turn. But yeah, not exactly my vision, but since this was totally an experiment, not too mad at it. So there we go. And we've got our snowman in the wheel, our reindeer in the snow, or in the snow globe, a gingerbread man, and our penguin. And if we hold that down, we can spin just the top wheel to change our snow. It definitely works a lot better if you wedge your finger between the two and turn the top one that way. And there's just one spot where that top wheel just sticks. I think there's maybe a piece of plastic sticking out at some point, and so that's why. So there we go. There is our double reveal wheel card. I am probably going to add something down there because I feel like it's a little too bare and not Christmassy enough. So just not sure yet what. And I think you now see how to do it. Decorating, you can decorate it up to your heart's content. So that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.